Hello, and welcome to the Your Food Matters podcast. I'm Dr. Sue Kleiner. I am here with my great friend and colleague, Eric Bustillo.
Hello, hello. What's happening, y'all?
We are so glad to be here with you today. If you enjoy our podcast, please share it with your friends. We are available on all the podcast platforms, as well as if you'd like to watch us as well as listen to us, you can log on to YouTube on the Move Nutrition Network channel. So, today, our topic is muscle. It seemed like a perfect follow on to our last three episodes where we talked about protein, everything protein. Don't worry. If you didn't hear those three, you can go back and listen to them. You won't come into this podcast unprepared as if you had skipped class or not read the text.
It's like if you tried to watch Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse, and then the second one, you kind of should watch the first one before watching the second one. Not with this.
This one you can dive right in and
That's it.
and go back and work backwards and still listen to protein, and you'll even get more out of it. So
Mhm.
there's so many issues around muscle. We've kind of fallen into the area where we think most people are mostly interested, not in the microscopic cellular issues of muscle, but what difference does it make if you have it or you don't to your health, to your daily life, to the way you navigate the world, all of those things, how you feel in mind and body, and then how do you get it, and how do you maintain it from early life until later on in your years?
Yeah, one of the things that I find interesting about the muscle conversation, just amongst the general population, um, is this hyper focus on the aesthetic component of muscle mass. Now, there's nothing wrong with having muscle mass for the aesthetic side of it. Like, I think I want to look good, and however I measure that is I have it in my head, and part of that is having some muscle mass. Um, but I think we forget so much about everything else that muscle does for us. And as part of that conversation, there's the conversation of aging. And I I refuse to blame age. Maybe I'm just too hard headed, and I try to kind of like I try to help my patients and my clients kind of think that same way too, where it's like, let's not just blame age for certain things. And it plays a role. I understand that, but we got to fight like hell.
Yeah, oh, 100%, and I'm there. But the thing that I got so excited about, this was a number of years ago, when we went from, especially in women, because I think in men, having a little more muscle has always not just been acceptable but desirable. It implies strength, and fitness and health and wellness, and but in women, of course, culturally, um, certainly in the Western world, we've been through 100 years of muscle not being part of the aesthetic for the average woman. And I feel like, thanks to Michelle Obama, that really changed. I mean, when we, not just to have muscle, but what can you do with it? And when she got down on the floor with Ellen DeGeneres and started doing push ups, it was just the most amazing thing that I had seen in a long time. Not just anybody, but our first lady, who is a fashion icon, right? And so I think that the idea of having your arms show, which arms were not a fashion accessory, you know, in all my years, being a younger woman, and today they really are. We see, if you follow fashion, that the sleeveless dress or shirt, that the a tank top, is about as iconic today as it's ever been, and it absolutely was not. You didn't show your arms, especially as you started to get a little older. So that's a big role for muscle, and a call to keep it, and to work it. But it's not just how you look, right? It's how you feel, how you can, for me, really a big part, like you, is navigating through your day, and not needing help. Not always
Yeah,
needing to ask for help.
for sure. Yeah, for what we call your ADLs, right? Activities of daily living. Um, I'm gonna rewind for a second because you made some points that just like made a million light bulbs go off in my head. Um, the a part of it is I'm gonna get on a societal soapbox. Another part of it is actually about CrossFit, and I'll start with the CrossFit part of it. I feel like CrossFit has made it okay for women to have muscle.
Hmm.
Also, right? Um, sure, you still have the people that are going to judge, and for whatever reason, people feel inclined to talk about other people's bodies, which blows my mind and bothers the crap out of me if I'm being
Yeah,
straightforward.
for sure.
Um, but in you walk into any CrossFit gym and you're gonna see an 18-year-old woman, a 35-year-old woman, a 46-year-old woman, a 63-year-old woman. Just on, oh gosh, when was it? On Monday, in my gym, we had this workout, and we have a member who's been doing CrossFit for 10 years, and all with us from down here in South Florida, and she will be 60 years old in November,
Hmm.
knocking out strict pull-ups.
Whoa.
Like you see that, and it's just like I get goosebumps just
Yeah,
kind of talking about it
yeah,
and
yeah,
thinking about
yeah,
how amazing that is.
yeah.
So that's one thing, and she looks great as well, in my opinion, from a physique standpoint. Personally, I like some muscle on women, and I like some muscle on myself. So from an aesthetic standpoint, and when I think about what I look for, like in physique, I think that muscle it looks nice. But think about the societal aspect of it all. How long, excuse me, how long have we kind of been telling, in air quotes, women that they have to be skinny?
Hmm.
You have to be skinny. You got to be small. Oh, she's petite. Like,
Hmm.
like it's a good thing.
You should
And don't live
just shrink and disappear, please.
basically, right? And that's super annoying too, because imagine that messaging just continues and continues, and then it's
Right,
generational
right,
because you have the other generations telling their daughters like, no, don't lift weights, that's for men. If you lift weights, you're going to look like a man.
right.
I mean, even the men who lift weights don't even look like a man, right? Quote unquote, whatever that means. Like, people think that looking like a man, which is going to take me to another part of this, people think looking like a man is to look like, Arnold Schwarzenegger back in the day when he looked like a titan or something
Right,
like that.
right.
And that messaging has also messed with the body image of men for
Hmm.
years now,
Yes.
because muscle has always been, and we don't think about eating disorders and even things like body dysmorphia and those sorts of things. We don't think about that in men too often. But I would argue that a good population of individuals who do have certain body image issues, perhaps, um, a good percentage are going to be men, specifically
Yes.
high school to college age men
Hmm.
who, we'll call it bigorexia, right? You feel like you have to be huge. You think about your workout all the time. I mean, we're talking 4 to 6 hours of your day where you're
Right.
like
You have no
constantly thinking
social
about it.
life. You're living in the gym. You miss family functions, all of that.
All
Yeah.
of that.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
it's like we have to understand, like, there's something has to be said about this, because there's nothing wrong with the pursuit of muscle mass. But what's the messaging we've been telling women? That they should be skinny? No, they should be strong. What have we been telling men? That they have to be as huge as possible, so get on steroids? No, they have to be strong also, but you don't have to be like, we don't have to epitomize someone like, I don't even know if that's a word, but I'm going to use it anyway. Someone like The Rock,
Yeah.
right? Who I think The Rock has a great physique. I mean, sure, he's got plenty of muscle, but now how realistic is that for people? And
Mm-hmm.
I'm not saying that he is or isn't, but what if he's using some sort of like performance enhancing drug or something? I don't think there's anything wrong with using that. Like, sure, if you're going to use it, by all means, I think you can do whatever you want. But when people think that it's normal to look like that, and I'm not blaming The Rock in any way, that becomes a bit of a problem, you know. Just like with women, the comparison I use is The Rock for men and like the Kardashians for
Right.
women, and it's just like no, the those two physiques, even though people might think that they look great or whatever, hopefully they think that they look great. That's the most important thing. I think we have to understand what is truly attainable and what is optimal for individuals, right? Do you have to be skinny? Ideally, you got to be strong, right?
Right. Well, so and so the question that I get very often, and then we're going to go to, much more specifics, but so for this nearly 60-year-old woman who can do pull-ups, so what difference does that make in her life? Aside from how cool is it that she can actually do pull-ups from the point of view of you and me and the world that we actually live in, where that physical challenge all by itself gives you a charge, does it matter that she has the the strength, the capacity, the kinesthetic awareness, the balance, all of that? What difference does it make that she can do a pull-up if, for instance, she falls out of a chair, or she, it's sort of in her real life? What difference does that make?
So in this particular, well, in real life, I guess we can kind of see what that means also in real life, because we could argue that, well, if you're gonna compete in CrossFit, I mean, if you can do strength pull-ups, maybe you can do like kipping pull-ups even more. And
Hmm.
if that's important to you, then awesome. But to be able to pull yourself up from falling on the ground, and if you have something to grab onto to pull yourself up, or even just to be able to perform, like people make fun of burpees, for example. If you can fall down and get back up,
Right.
that's great, because a huge part of the problem for the aging population, aging, I mean, we're all aging, but when we're talking about older adults, let's call it 80 plus, broken hips, falls,
Right.
those sorts of things are a problem. So knowing how to fall, having the muscle to support that, because, and I'll use an anecdote, and I don't have any research behind this, but I can make it make sense in my brain. I know someone who, for their physical activity, they would walk. And I'm a huge fan of walking. I think walking is underrated, underutilized. Like, walking is great. It's not enough for optimal living, in my opinion. So,
And in
to
many
keep this
other
brief,
professionals' opinion, just by the way, it's not just you alone, Eric.
for sure. No, I know that. I just don't like speaking for many people. But yes, for sure. I know that people stand with me on that, and I stand with them. But to keep it brief, she fractured her hip, and I don't remember how old she was at the time. Not very old. Let's just say uh, somewhere between, I don't know, 50 and 60 or something. And again, I really don't know her age. She fractured her hip because she stumbled on something that was on the floor,
Hmm.
fell down, broke her hip. My head couldn't help but go to, I hope she's okay. And I wonder if things would have been different if she would do strength and power training, right? Because if you're doing agility work, agility ladders, you're working on quickness, that first step. And if you're building up strength to be able to either move fast or catch yourself or have muscle around the area,
Hmm.
one, does she ever even fall because she can catch herself? Two, if she does fall, does she know how to fall or catch herself? And three, if she just fully does fall, is she well protected because of the muscle? Maybe she hits herself, but it's not a fractured hip, and now she's out for like 6 months or however long it
and
was.
and it's never too late to start. And so, if CrossFit isn't your
Amen.
thing, if that's not your jam, if that seems too advanced for you to start, although there's always beginners, um there's many other avenues, and getting a good trainer and starting to use some kind of progressive resistance training so that you are beginning to build muscle. And as I said, never too late. So, I'd say probably it might be close to 30 years ago now, a very famous study that really started the ball rolling on training for older adults was a study done at Tufts University by Dr. Bill Evans. And he took a bunch of 90-year-olds, 80 and 90-year-olds, and every one of them had some kind of deficiency for their mobility. So some people walked with a cane, some people walked with a walker, some people were in wheelchairs, all because of a lack of balance and strength, not because they had, dysfunction in a limb that, was never going to change. So he started to strength train this group. I believe it was 3 days a week. They did specific strength training with trainers that understood their population. They were very safe with them. And by the end of the study, maybe it was 12 or 16 weeks, people who were in wheelchairs had left their wheelchairs behind and they were walking with walkers. People with walkers had left their walkers behind and they were walking with canes. And people with canes had left their canes behind and were walking unassisted. It was incredibly profound results. And it showed that you can gain strength. Building muscle itself, that wasn't their point. It was strength. And I can't remember if the data were also that they built muscle, increased muscle size. Maybe they did. I don't recall. But they certainly increased their strength, their balance, their ability to navigate the world with just the strength training. And and that's what I mean. Like, it changes your life. I had my own experience that I think we've talked about on here very on one of the first podcasts where sort of everything in this world today is, was it pre-COVID, during COVID, after COVID? Well, during COVID,
So this is
I
DC
this
during
is
COVID.
during COVID. I ended up at the front desk of my husband's periodontal practice. And if anyone could imagine what was the worst, felt like most dangerous job you could have during COVID, was being a dentist, where you were aerosolizing saliva back into your own face, right, to do dentistry. And of course, we had all the precautions and everything, but he had two front office people who worked for him who retired as COVID started because they didn't want to work in a dental office. And so I actually shut down my nutrition practice and I went in to help him with his practice in the front office. And it really became a 24/7 job. There was just to keep that practice running. It was very intense. I don't want to go into how scary it was at the beginning, but anyway, I became more sedentary than I ever was in my whole life because I'm sitting at a front desk working at a computer all day long from 6 in the morning until almost 9 at night by the time we get out of there. And it was a bad time as far as my age group to become very sedentary. And I went from about 2 years before that, having had a bone scan, to being younger than my age in my bone mineral density and having very healthy bones, to 2 years on from, so it was every 5 years. So I had a bone scan sort of following that, almost 2 years in the office, and I had osteopenia. Now, maybe that would have happened on its own. It was 5 years in between during, the middle of my 60s. Maybe that was just what was going to happen, but I doubt it. I became very sedentary. My diet was not as regular as it had always been. I definitely wasn't eating nearly as much as usual because I wasn't active. And I decided, when the doctor said to me, we need to put you on one of these bisphosphonate drugs to keep your bones from, going to osteoporosis. I have to say, I'm not a fan of those drugs. I know that they are used widely. They are very helpful for many, many people. For me, uh, I wanted to see what I could do on my own, drug free. And so I started powerlifting, which I had done years ago and I had let go of. I started powerlifting 3 days a week with a fabulous trainer. And I started as a beginner again. Remember, I'd been sedentary for several years. I started doing other activities, and I was now out of the office. Uh, I added more creatine to my diet. I added more protein, more carbs, more calories, just all around ate so much better. And within 1 year, I grew bone and I am no longer osteopenic. So between the years of being 64 and 65 years old, just to be really clear and transparent, I grew new bone. And that is real new bone, not the bone that you kind of get from these bisphosphonate bone protective drugs, which is not the same kind of natural solid bone that you usually get. And um, so it can be done, and spreading that word. But here's the thing, I was building muscle. And why does that work? Because bone remodels, right? So bone sort of comes and goes. It remodels. That's just the biology of bone. It is not some static dead material in your body, just a warehouse for minerals. It actually continues to evolve and change in your body. It and so calcium and other nutrients and materials are sort of recycled in and out of your bone. And so when you don't have enough, you're giving it out into your bloodstream and you're not remodeling back into the bone. And estrogen plays a big role in that. But one of the things that helps your bone build is stress. Just like so many other, I mean, we could talk about stress and its benefits on the body. We are built in such an amazing way through evolution because we are stressed, physically stressed, and stress helps your body grow bigger, faster, stronger. That's why hard work pays off physically. And so the pulling, when your muscles contract, when there's a demand on your muscle, it pulls on the connective tissue which is attached to the bone. It pulls on the bone, it stresses the bone, and it causes the bone to respond by remodeling and building. And so if you're not using your muscles, you're not building your bones. And so that's why that any kind of sort of um, stress on your bones through physical activity is so amazingly beneficial.
That makes me think of the presentation that Dr. Tracy Clissold gave at ISSN
Ah, yes.
this year about jumping and the
Oh, what?
importance and
Tell
benefits of
that
jumping.
story. Tell that story because it really is amazing.
Yeah, it's just so cool. I mean, you don't really think about it, but she's out of New Zealand, and she was talking about how incorporating jumping into your exercise program is beneficial for bone support, right? And it was interesting to hear some of the stuff that she said because it wasn't just like jumping and landing carefully, which that can still help, but she was like almost stressing the point of like landing in a rough way where there's like impact.
Right? A straight, almost a straight leg land,
Yeah,
and then a little hop, right?
and then yeah. But for me, it was kind of like, whoa, what on earth? Because I've always, especially like being an athlete, you learn to jump and you want to try to kind of like either cushion the jump or just not land too rough, and you think you might like hurt yourself or something like that. But she was basically saying, yeah, just try almost like landing hard, and they'll see this like either regeneration of bone and whatnot, which is quite fascinating because we don't think that.
And she has a whole program. I don't have a link off the top of my head, but you can certainly look up Dr. Tracy Clissold. It's, I think, Clissold.
Hmm.
and she is in New Zealand, and she has a program. And so if you find her, you'll probably find her jumping program, and it really is something you can do anywhere. I think the research was that people were doing it at their desk at work, or and they were doing all kinds of stuff. It was very cool. It's not like some big jumping um, program that you have to be in a gym. It literally was stand up for 5 minutes or 3 minutes at your desk. 3 minutes, I think it was, at
I
your
think it was
desk.
3.
Yeah, something like that. And I mean, it was the people in the audience, and these are a bunch of scientists and trainers. Everyone, we it was jaw dropping, and her data on bone growth and improvement was astounding. So yeah, that's a cool one. So thinking about what can we do nutritionally for muscle and how else does it help us? I mean, the data are so abundantly clear, certainly bone, but also glucose management, right? Carbohydrate metabolism, people with type 2 diabetes, muscle makes a huge difference because that's where carbohydrate is managed in your body, is in your muscles. I mean, a little in your liver, but primarily in your muscles. And the more work your muscles do, the better you will manage your carbohydrate in your bloodstream. Also, high blood pressure. There was actually just a super cool article in the New York Times about wall sits. So you don't need any fancy equipment or anything, but if you do like 4 2-minute wall sits a day, your blood pressure will drop appreciably. There's data on high blood pressure because muscle also is highly involved in lipid metabolism. So not to mention your mood and mental health, how just exercise in general, the impact it has on mood. But I have found with my clients over many years that clients who do manage their mental health um, find that exercise that challenges them, where they can sort of have measurable results on a daily basis. And they can say, look at that. I progressed this far. I can pat myself on the back. I'm getting these results. Look at me. I am a success. And that can be with anything. That can be with speed, that can be with power, strength, lots of things, whatever you enjoy. But something that gives you measurable success, I think, is very good for mental health. I know for me, anytime I go into the gym, it's a personal best. So
And it's so great to get like a PR, right, personal record, or PB, personal best, because it gives us this uplift. It's like a boost, right? It
right.
uplifts us to want to do more and keep on working. And it's just like just yesterday actually, we have a member at the gym. She's 63 and she's still getting PRs. She's been doing CrossFit for a good while. And I want to say yesterday she got a PR on her squat clean, and it's
Yay.
just like it's just so awesome to
It's a
see this.
dopamine kick, it's just
For
like
sure.
it definitely affects your brain. And so and taking all of that out of, as you were saying at the very beginning, away from the aesthetic is the least, I think, satisfying part. When we think about internal motivation, right? Internal motivation is something where, you know, eh, you want to do this because you get satisfaction. And what I love about the word satisfaction is that it takes action to have satisfaction.
I like that. That's awesome, and it's so true. It really does. And just again, I know it's time for us to wrap up, but just think about the functionality, right? From getting off of the toilet, right? We're doing squats in the toilet. If you're flying and you got to put your luggage, your carry on
Oh, yeah,
overhead,
for
all
sure.
those things. It's just the things that we do in our day to day lives, carrying a milk jug or whatever it might be, and grip strength, and all of those things are affected by muscle and the maintenance of it, because it truly is the fountain of youth, right? This pursuit and maintenance of muscle.
Totally. And balance is like going back to the falling and being able to
Yeah.
catch your balance. So in China, one of their, when they're out in the field assessing the health of people, and you're not in an office and you don't have all this equipment, one of the major things is, can you balance on one foot? And so a national sort of health, um, uh, strategic thing to do every day in China for health maintenance is to put your socks on standing up.
I like that.
So simple stuff. I bet anyone listening, please just try it. Try
I'm gonna start doing that.
standing and putting your socks on and taking them off every single day. Pretty much, I mean, maybe you live in Miami, Eric. I don't know if people wear socks in Miami.
Yeah. No, we do. We do. I wear socks even like with my slides, but that's just something I've done since I was younger and like when I was like an athlete and stuff. It's stuck with me.
But I know here in Seattle, well, young people are out with flip-flops when it's, 35, 38 degrees, but not the rest of us. So the idea of for sure twice a day you're putting socks on and then taking them off, and you're standing on one foot balancing, doing, something, and then switching feet. It's just in your life, right? And so I've been doing this, I've known this about 10 years. My husband does it, my kids, like, I made everybody start doing it. It's a thing. You will find that when you start, even if you're a serious athlete, it may be an awkward thing to be doing, and ultimately you'll get better at it. And it is great because you're barefoot when you start, so you have that kinesthetic, that feel on that's super important. The connections from the bottom of your feet, those nerves connect all the way to your brain and are sending messages, and those are your teeny tiny little muscles that all have to start working together so that you can balance all the way up and make that movement. So my little suggestion: put your socks on standing up, take them off standing up, and you will find improvement, at
I'm
least
gonna
for
start
putting
doing
your
that.
socks on, one foot at a
Yeah,
time.
assuming you wear socks. Now you're gonna see the boost in sock sales goes up 20%
Right.
after your Food
Also,
Matters podcast.
right, when you start, of course, do it next to something where you can hang on or lean against if you need to. Please don't fall down.
Yeah, don't live life on the edge like that.
Well, that's a little bit of a conversation about muscle. There is a lot we can talk about. You heard me mention sort of my strategy of what I did nutritionally, and hydration matters. There's so many things. So I think maybe we'll do 2 episodes on muscle, because I think nutrition specifically for muscle and bone, and all these other things, your brain, um, uh, that revolve around muscle, and preparing to do that workout, and then feeding it as you go. Those are good things for us to talk about. I mean, we did a lot of protein before, but there are other factors other than
Definitely.
protein that matter.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. Let's do that.
Okay. Have a good day, Eric.
Thank you. Same to you. Thanks for listening, everybody.
Thanks for joining us. See you soon.